This was probably one of my favorite gigs I've done in a really long time. So if you're coming over from the Flashgitz channel, welcome, my name's Heyde, I'm a composer, and for those of you who are on my channel, let me just briefly explain Flashgitz and how this all happened. About a week ago from the time of recording this, I was sitting on my couch at 11 p.m., doing the social media rounds, scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through Twitter, scrolling through Instagram again, and then I noticed I had a rare DM in Twitter, which doesn't happen to me too often, so opened it up, and I saw it was from a guy named Flashgitz Don. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, where do I know the name Flashgitz from? And then it hit me. Flashgitz has done kind of raunchy adult animations for years. And one of the first animations I ever saw on YouTube was one called Racist Mario. It was basically about Mario being just totally belligerent and a horrible person, and it was just so shocking that it was absolutely hysterical. I hadn't seen anything like it before. So when I realized that they were the Flashgitz, shortly after picking up my body parts from the floor, I texted Don back. I said, I'm definitely interested, let's make it happen. The animation I was gonna be working on was from the series Console Wars, which they've been making for many years now. And it's basically, as you can imagine, about these different consoles competing to see who is the better specimen, machine. Again, just to be clear, Flashgitz does adult animations. If you're offended by that kind of thing, then maybe this isn't the animation for you. But in this video, I'm gonna give you a quick behind the scenes look at my scoring process for a very specific scene in this animation. If you wanna see the full animation, I have linked that in the description so you can check that out and go support the Flashgitz team. So when I start working for animation, typically the first thing I receive is an animatic, which is basically like a rough animation, usually comprised of still frames, like a storyboard, along with some sound effects and voiceover. The other thing I receive is spotting notes, and spotting notes are universal whether it's animation or film, but are basically the creative notes on what the music should be doing throughout the picture. So it could be hard hit points like somebody getting stabbed, it could be more emotional moods going throughout a scene, and anything in between. So for this video, we're gonna focus on one specific scene, which is the action sequence. So I'm gonna show you what the animatic looks like. Don, I hope you don't mind. And this will give you an idea of what I'm working with when I create the music. So let's play the scene first on its own, and then we'll go into the music.
All rigs, report in!
Attack Group Carmack reporting in! Attack Group Newell reporting in! Attack Group Rashid reporting in!
This baby has about 10 minutes in it before it overheats. Let us go to work, my friends. Why is he just floating there? He's using hacks!
So obviously there's a lot of stuff that I have to hit musically to enhance that moment. So my approach for a scene like this is to pay really close attention to what I'm feeling throughout each moment and what I kind of envision. That first experience is the most important one because that's the experience that the audience is gonna have. So as I'm watching this, I see a couple hit points. First, we have kind of like the horde arriving. So that should feel kind of ominous and brooding. Then we kind of had like almost like a militaristic thing, like we want it to feel maybe potentially adventurous because they're all excited about this battle. This looks like a very climactic shot because you notice that it's close in on his face. Now when we have close-up shots, that's something that implies intensity, so you want to really accentuate and exaggerate that. Now here I got written notes that this is supposed to be very ominous and brooding, like we don't know what's happening. We don't know why this thing is floating up in the air. So I decided I was gonna put a riser here. I knew that right off the bat. And a riser is basically just a musical rising gesture. It's usually kind of creepy sounding. You hear a lot of them in trailer music. Then he disappears.
He's using hacks!
Now at that moment, there's obviously some panic and fear, but it's really important with music that you don't hit that on the beat of him saying that. You actually want to hit it afterwards because you need to give the audience time to actually react to that moment. Now the chaos kind of begins, so I see this as the chaotic moment.
Rashid, I'm getting notified that you're launching Crash Bandicoot 3.
You know your PC can't handle that. What are you doing?
Now we also have a zoom in shot here. Zooms are another really important thing to pay attention to. When something zooms into a character, it implies significance. So we want to, again, kind of accent that moment. Something subtle but effective.
Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure.
So he's obviously going to sacrifice himself, so we need something that feels kind of martyr-like he's about to be the hero that they all need.
Eating his PC!
Rashid, no!
Hits, explosion, want to stay out of the way of that explosion, and then it reveals to see him dead. And I got, again, notes for that we're looking to imitate the scene when Aragorn gets kicked in battle in Lord of the Rings. Spoiler alert, I guess. So with all those points in mind, I'm gonna show you how I actually approach it in Logic Pro, which is a software that I use. So this is what my project file looks like in Logic Pro. And again, Logic Pro, it's kind of like a souped up GarageBand if you've ever used anything like that. So the first thing I do is try and establish the tempo, because all of these shots have different tempi to them, different speeds, and we want to kind of match that to be able to have our hit points in the music line up with the hit points on the screen. So after playing around a little bit, I thought I wanted something that kind of felt like Lord of the Rings like, kind of action-y, but also heavy. So I came up with this feeling that was like yun dun 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 dun, which is like groupings of 5. So let's play the music so you can actually hear that all together now.
All rigs, report in!
Attack Group Carmack reporting in. Attack Group Newell reporting in.
Why is he just floating there? He's using hacks! Rashid, I'm getting notified that you're launching Crash Bandicoot 3!
No, your pistol can't handle that. What are you doing?
Not today, you bastard son of a whore's mother! Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure! It's overheating his PC! Help! Oh God, help!
Okay, so one note to make is about comedy and how you approach comedy. There are a couple of approaches, right? So you can Mickey Mouse, which is basically saying that you're hitting every hit point, you're trying to make things that are goofy even goofier. And then the other approach is kind of the straight man approach, which is I'm gonna treat this as seriously as possible because of how ridiculous the situation is. And that was my approach for most of this score, is the more I can invest in this story, the funnier it's gonna be because of what the story is in the first place. When Rajit dies, obviously something extremely sentimental. When they're fighting, something extremely epic. And that's gonna get into the revision I'm gonna talk about later. But for now, let's just briefly pick apart kind of how I scored these moments here. This is percussion heavy, this beginning section, and I'll play the percussion on its own so you can hear what that sounds like. Anvils, timpanis. I wanted it to feel like kind of a march, but something a little bit staggered, and have some of that epic percussion to make it feel like it was war. You'll also notice that there's a lot of brass. We have lots of brass kind of swells to accentuate that percussion. And then French horns. Brass is a very dominant instrument section. So when brass is playing the melody, typically everything else is gonna get buried. And so there's not usually a point in doubling the brass melodies with the other instrument sections. So instead, you can use the other instruments to kind of add some movement, some flourishes, that sort of thing. So the woodwinds in this section are actually just kind of doing flourishes on the second half, if you listen to them. That adds a little bit of color underneath the brass. So let's check out the brass and woodwinds. Now, in a similar fashion, strings are also doing the same kind of things. Here are the strings. Strings, brass, and winds all together. And just for an epic flair, I added in the choir as well, which is kind of just holding some chords. Now this is our riser. Now, when he disappears, I thought it would be funny to kind of have something to signify their disappearance in a little bit of a comedic way, but I didn't want like a timpani boing or anything. So I used a koto, which is an Asian instrument, just kind of doing ding. Very subtle, but I think it's pretty funny. Now, our original intention for the next scene was to use more Asian percussion and instrumentation to imply that that side is winning in this fight. We actually wound up changing directions on that, and you'll see why in a second. So originally, like I said, we were working with this groove-oriented thing that had a lot of Asian percussion. Sounds like this. And then we have that kind of epic moment where it's like, Rajit, no, don't do it. And so we wanted to have this build. So I was moving up the scale essentially to just build it and build it and build it until the explosion happens, at which point we get kind of that choir requiem, which sounds like this. Now at this point, I got 3 fantastic notes from Don. The first one was that beginning where we have kind of the horde in the background. He wanted that entrance to be a little stronger, so the music should support that. The second note was that when the war actually begins, we decided to move away from the Asian percussion and really just slam into that Lord of the Rings feeling. Just really epic end of the world kind of stuff. And the third note was we wanted Rajit's death to be a little bit more somber in terms of the harmonic choices. So the harmony as it stands now was kind of rising, and we felt that that made it seem too hopeful. So we wanted to keep it sinking and sinking and sinking. So with those 3 revisions in mind, check out the final product and how it changed the way this whole thing feels.
All rigs, report in!
Attack Group Carmack reporting in. Attack Group Newell reporting in.
Why is he just floating there? He's using hacks! Regime, I'm getting notified that you're launching Crash Bandicoot 3!
Can't handle that. What are you doing?
Not today, you bastard son of a whore's mother! Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure! It's overheating in PC! Help! Oh God, help!
And I'm going to leave that part at a cliffhanger so that you have to watch the finished animation to see what happens. Now, the total score probably took me about 10 hours from start to finish, including revisions, and there's a lot I could get into. So if you want to see more about this process and what it was like composing the entire animation, then leave a comment about what you'd like to learn more about, and then I might make another video in the future explaining this animation in particular and kind of what I did to bring the music to life. Don and Tom, if you're watching this, thank you again for trusting me with this project. It was so much fun. One of my favorite gigs I've done in a really long time, and he did an amazing job working with me as a composer. So really appreciate it. Hope we have the chance to work together again. Now that I've plugged myself to the Flashgitz team, if you guys enjoyed this video, please do leave a like, subscribe for more. And if you want to support me directly, you can check out my Patreon, where most people contribute $5 to $10 and get access to a bunch of bonus content like behind the scenes videos, Q&As, and other bonus content of that nature. That's it for now. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.